Hey guys, my name is Rachel and today we are talking about Big Little Lies. Now, I read this book a couple of weeks ago. I just actually finished the TV series season 1, which season 2 it goes beyond the original book. So I wanted to take a pause here before I continue on with the show and kind of give my thoughts and explain a little bit of the differences between the book and the TV show. I'm really excited about this because I didn't know Big Little Lies was a book. I saw it on HBO, like a trailer when I had Hulu or something, and I was really intrigued by the story of these women and these secrets in this town. And it is rich white mom drama, which there is a section of the book community that loves rich white mom drama. And I tried to explain to my husband why this was so appealing and why it was like an actual thing. Like there's a lot of these out there and I couldn't. I think personally for me, mine started with the Click books as a kid, which this is the movie cover, but the Click books started this kind of obsession with rich white girl drama, and now it's just continued on into adulthood. For those of you who do not know, A Big Little Lies is set in Australia, and it focuses around a few women, and it goes through their lives as moms. It's set on the beach. They've all got fabulous houses and beautiful husbands and gorgeous children, but someone dies. There are trigger warnings for sexual assault and domestic violence, so if either of those things causes you emotional and mental harm, please do not pick up this book. It is not worth it. But if that's something that doesn't bother you, I definitely recommend. It is worth the ride, but it's a different ride than I had expected. When I first saw the trailers for the TV show, what I kind of imagined, this is why I don't like to know a lot about my books and TV shows going into it, because my imagination goes a little wild and then I'm disappointed with the book I actually read. But what I imagined initially was the story of a murder and these women that cover up the murder. And then there's a detective coming in trying to pull out the lies, and it does get into the drama and the backstory of what happened in their lives. But the focus is more on the lies, right? The show's called Big Little Lies, and it's focused on uncovering those lies and figuring out what actually happened. And I think that's where season 2 of the show is going to go after watching the first one. They kind of set up things and they change things from the book. But for those of you who haven't read the books, it's not really about that. It's more about the inner lives of the women that were involved in the murder and kind of how all the events leading up to it led to just this outbreak of rage and exhaustion and just retaliation. One of the things I loved most about it was that it took these individual little moments of drama and just compiled on them. We all have aspects of our lives that they're little bitty pieces of drama, and it comes up and it floats away and it goes away. But in this story, the dramas don't float away. They just keep piling on each other. Little things that happen between moms, between kids, between dads, just pile and pile and pile and pile until they explode. And I think part of the appeal behind that is we all kind of want an explosion. We all kind of want a reason for these little dramas that hurt us so badly to matter in our lives. And when they just pop up and then float away, they don't seem to matter. And sometimes we want them to matter. Since it is a thriller/mystery, I'm not going to give any spoilers in this review, especially because it is a newer TV series and the book's not even that old. I think it was published in 2014. So there are probably plenty of people out there that haven't read it yet. I don't want to spoil anything. But we are going to talk about some non-spoilery differences between the book and the TV show. So to get into it, initially, I have notes, so bear with me. But the very first thing that I noticed as soon as I turned the TV show on was that the book is set in Australia and the show is set in the US. Not a huge deal. Changes some accents. That's about it. Secondly, the children in the book are in kindergarten, and in the TV show, they're in first grade, which is not a huge deal to me. I understand the decision that was made. I feel like children that are slightly older than kindergarten age are probably easier to direct. They probably act a little bit better, and especially for the subject matter, they might be able to handle it better, as well as getting parental consent for allowing their child to participate in something that can be potentially harmful. Those are just some side things, little details that didn't really matter much. But the very first big thing that I noticed was that in the book, the perspectives were really focused on 3 women, Madeline, Celeste, and Jane. And we're only in these 3 women's heads. We might get a few glimpses here and there into a side character too, like during an interview or something. But for the majority, our story is focused on these 3 women. In the TV show, they hired a lot of famous actors and actresses, so they had to give more screen time to these famous people. So every character and every side character got a story, and they got a perspective, and they got a voice, which isn't harmful. It changes the way the conversation goes a little bit, which I'll talk about in a second. It's not harmful. It does give more backstory. I think it's great. For a book, I do prefer the 3 perspectives only. I think for the TV show it's fine. I think if they had done a strict page-to-page transcribed transformation, it wouldn't have been long enough to be a TV show in the first place. And in the second place, it might not have held as much weight because a lot of the book is focused on internal processes, which you can't put on screen. You can try, but it fails, which they tried. In making that decision to give every side character a perspective and a storyline, we changed the conversation from bullies are everywhere and they sometimes look different than you would think, to bullies are people too and they have a background and a story too, which is beneficial, but it changes the conversation. So we're talking about 2 different things here. A lot of times if you've been the victim of abuse or bullying, you don't want to see their side, you don't want to see their perspective because they've hurt you and you don't want to give them any excuse to reason away why that hurt might happen, which is a big part of Celeste's character. Celeste's husband is abusive and violent, and her character, the big character development that she has is to grow to understand that what he does to her is not okay, because in the beginning she excuses it away because of who he is, how much she loves him, how good of a father he is. And as the story progresses, she comes to understand how wrong this actually is. There's also this conversation on how bullies look different than you might think. To set up the story a little bit for you, there is one girl at school who is being physically abused, and then there is a child at school who is accused of being the abuser, and there's no proof either way. So that's one of the mysteries of the story, is whether this child is actually the abuser. But until they find out, he is bullied not by the children, but by the parents. The parents of the school actively bully a 5-year-old. They tell their children they're not allowed to play with him. They make him feel bad for being a little kid, and he doesn't fully understand what's going on. And it's just the pressure that he undergoes is very intentionally contrasted with the actual physical abuse that the girl child experiences. We also get the perspective of, in my personal opinion, a bully. Madeline, one of the main characters, I would call her a bully. She is not necessarily malicious in her intent, which not all bullies are, but she has a very dominating personality. She tells people what to do. She gets her nose involved in other people's business, and she stirs up drama. And for all intents and purposes of this conversation, she is a bully. So we have different kinds, and I loved the conversation of child bullies, adults who bully children, adults who bully adults, and then people who are just downright abusive and physically violent. Like I said earlier, there is a season 2 that I have not watched yet, and supposedly the author of Big Little Lies has written a short novella to kind of coincide with the second series, the second season. She hasn't published it yet, but in the process of creating season 2, she wanted to be in on the conversation, so she kept providing story snippets for her characters and then ended up compiling them into a novella that hopefully will be published. I would love to read it if she does publish it. It follows the events that happen after the end of book 1 and where the characters are moving forward. There were some characters that I felt weren't done justice by the TV show, and I'm going to talk about them here, again, non-spoilery, but in the transfer from print to screen, there was some things that were done poorly. And I want to start with Abby. Abby is Madeline's daughter, and in the book, she's 14. In the movie, I don't think they actually give her age, but in the book, Madeline and Abigail have a fraught mother-daughter relationship. Madeline is no longer with Abigail's father. She basically raised her as a single mother when Abigail's father left them both. And now Abigail's father has come back into the picture with his own child and a new wife, and they're going to the same school. And so Madeline has to see her ex and his new wife all the time, and she brings her new husband with her. And there's a lot of drama that's developed there. But Abby and Maddie's relationship isn't the best because of this. Madeline feels very protective and very close with her daughter, and Abby has started to feel a little smothered by her mother's intentions, and she's developed a really great connection with her dad's new wife, which drives Madeline up the wall. But their relationship is very normal. I feel like it's very understandable, and Abby is not, she's not a typical teenager. She's not very rebellious. She's just hurting. And she ends up making some decisions that hurt her mom. And she's very sorry about those decisions, and she comes to an exception of like understanding what she's done and how it's affected her family. But TV show Abby was very different. And it kind of made me mad because it was very stereotypical. I'm only 24. I feel like I'm not that far away from when I was a teenager. But I hate when stereotypes are used on teens because adults have a hard enough time relating to teens as they get older. And so TV shows that just rely on stereotypes can be very hurtful and negative. So for background, Abby in the TV show is very rebellious, and she wears dark tights with shorts and has dark eyeliner and like the shaggy haircut, and she's obviously older than 14. She's constantly sassy to her mom and her stepdad. She has no respect for authority, and she's pushing back against her mom's pressure to be perfect, and her connection with her dad's new wife has nothing really to do with the fact that they really get along. It's just to piss her mom off, and I hated it. I hated what they did with Abby's character because that's kind of old and trite. The rebellious teen pissing off the mom, we get the story. But if you have the story of a normal child, not to say rebellious teenagers aren't normal, but just very calm-mannered, very demure, nothing like her mother, but they're just normal everyday headbutting and not straight-on rebellion, is a very important story to tell as well. There's also not a lot of growth for Abby. She has some conversations with all of her parents, and she learns a little bit, but we don't get to see her really truly grow. She just kind of accepts things and moves on. I think she does apologize for the big mistakes that she ends up making, but she doesn't, they don't seem to affect her. She just kind of moves on from them. And that was frustrating because book Abby was very introspective and thought a lot about what she had done to her family. And we don't even get Abby's perspective in the book. So all of her introspection that we're seeing isn't even inside her head. It's visible with what we're seeing around her. The next character I want to talk about is Bonnie herself, Maddie's ex-husband's new wife. And the Bonnie in the book, it's just very different from the Bonnie in the TV show. They have some things that are very similar, but they tend to focus less on her beliefs and her ideologies, on life and love and truth, and they instead focus more on like her eclectic personality and her kitschy little house, and she likes to have pottery instead of glassware. They focus more on the superficial things than the more internal things, even though they give TV show Bonnie way more screen time than book Bonnie, because TV show Bonnie is played by Zoe Kravitz. Which, side note, when I was reading the book, I've seen the posters, so I knew all the actresses in the TV show. So I'm reading the book and I'm like assigning actresses to characters, and I got them all wrong. Thankfully, though, my internal character images started to take over the actresses, so they developed a life of their own. Also, as a side note, the principal in the book was a female, and they made the principal in the TV show a male, and that made me mad because the one position of actual power that someone in the TV show had that wasn't seen in a negative light was removed. So, good job, HBO. Focusing next on Jane, I truly was disappointed in how the TV show developed Jane's character. She was not given near as much screen time as the other women. The background behind her story was not given. In the book, we get to meet her parents, and we get to learn this full history of who she was, who she is now, why she's the way she is now, the struggles that she has now. And the TV show Jane, we just see going on a lot of runs and screaming a lot. Which I understand the frustration and like the emotion they're trying to portray there, but they don't even out. This one's way better than this one. Even though this character was still okay, this Jane over here was still better. The last character that I want to talk about is Perry. Perry is Celeste's wife. Perry is Celeste's, I can't say Celeste. Perry is the husband of Celeste, and he is abusive. And part of the whole overarching plot of the story is Celeste coming to grips with Perry's abuse. And the brilliant thing that the book does is it takes you in Celeste's position. She loves her husband. He's a wonderful father. They have a magical connection that people all over the town envy, but he's got this dirty little secret in her mind. He's just a little bit, his flaw, you know, what's it called? His vice is just, he just gets a little violent sometimes, and it's just our problem. All marriages have problems. This is just our problem. And it takes a while before we even see Perry abuse her, before we even see anything like progress to a place, whereas in the TV show it's just like boom, like the first scene he's in, Perry is like on her and like super aggressive, and like my husband was like, what the heck are we watching? Because he was so caught off guard. There wasn't this slow build up. Also, and when you see that immediately, you're like, Celeste, what are you doing with this man? Versus in the book, when you get to grow with her and start to pick up on these things with her, you can understand and be more sympathetic to her perspective instead of the TV show Celeste. You're like, are you stupid? Get out of there. I think that's part of the nuance that the TV show lacked, and I'm not advocating for Perry to have more backstory because I don't agree in supporting abusers in any sort of way. But I think for Celeste's character specifically, we needed to see a different side of Perry before we saw his abusive side. I feel like I'm talking negative about the TV show, and honestly, it was great. I enjoyed watching it. The imagery was great. The music, the soundtracking, I don't know if that's what it's called when it's a TV show, but the music in the show is fantastic. The camera work, the way everything was edited together with the scenes of the ocean, and it was beautiful, and I enjoyed watching it. And I would recommend it to anyone who is not going to be triggered by the themes. And I did really enjoy it, and I don't supremely dislike it. I don't know if I like the book better even, but there was just things that they did differently. And I think the book was great as it was. And the TV show was great as it was too, but it wasn't the same. I don't know how to say what I'm saying. Now, as far as the ending goes, I'm going to be very cryptic because spoilers. The TV show changed the ending of the book slightly. And I know they did it on purpose to set up season 2. And honestly, I think season 2 is going to be a bit more like what I had in my head. And maybe that's because I had seen trailers for season 2 instead of season 1. I don't really know. Anyways, they changed it just a little bit to make season 2. And part of me feels like it's a money grab. I hate that. I hate when you can tell things are a money grab. But also part of me is like, I get where they're going. Like now they can flesh out some more character work and get to that conclusion. The same conclusion that was in book 1, hopefully, but just at a different pace. I mostly agreed with all of the changes that they made in the show. They added a lot in. For instance, I won't say who, but there is a cheating narrative that is added. A wife is cheating on her husband, and I really felt like it took away from the main conflict of that character in the first place. That her internal conflict was much greater than, oh, I cheated on my husband and I feel bad. And now in the TV show, they've changed all of the stress she was feeling leading up to the big event that happened had nothing to do with her cheating. It had everything to do with everything else that was going on in her life. But they added in this cheating thing. I don't know why. Maybe to add another attractive male character to the mix. But I didn't think it added anything, and it kind of I didn't like it. Everything else, though, that they added, I was pretty okay with. There's this side story with a community theater and a puppet show, and there's a side interactions with the children, and like the big finale of the book, they added in a singing contest, and there was a lot of stuff that was fun that I enjoyed, but there was a few things that I didn't like at all. I'm excited for season 2. I'll probably post something in the comments down below once I watch it to let you know how I felt about it, but I'm not going to talk about it in a video, at least not until the novella comes out. If you have read Big Little Lies and you have thoughts, please feel free to comment below. If you've seen the TV show, please feel free to comment below. If you've read it and not seen the show, or you've seen the show and not read the book, let me know. I want to know who those people are. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if you liked everything that they changed in the TV show. But anyways, these are just the differences that I noticed between the book Big Little Lies and the TV show. If you have anything positive to say below, feel free. Negative stuff too, I'll take it all. Also, if you like this content that I'm creating, please subscribe so you can see what else I've got going on. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.